Yes, they were called the Teal Wave, named after the colour of their campaigns. 6 independent women candidates running against sitting Liberal male MPs and winning.
One of them is Kylea Tink, who won a Conservative stronghold in North Sydney. I asked whether she thought she could ever win that seat.
The obvious answer to that question is yes, because I don't think we would have run if we didn't believe that we could win. The reality is that I was approached by a community group that had already done some very long-term and hard thinking about whether an independent could get up here in the seat of North Sydney. The seat of North Sydney has been a blue ribbon Liberal seat for almost its entire existence, 120 odd years. There was 6 years it was held by a male independent. So it was just a really exciting time. We campaigned for 36 weeks, day in, day out, hour to hour, really, just really working hard to actively re-engage the people of North Sydney.
What was the one thing that won you the seat, given it's such a Liberal stronghold?
Yeah, it was the simple fact that people across my electorate felt they weren't being heard anymore.
You're one of 6 new Teal independents. Is what you've identified the success behind the movement?
I believe it is, Simon. I believe it is very much a case that the people here in Australia have said they want politics done differently. You know, we have ended up with a two-party system that has been gridlocked around each other for the last decade. And so I think the single biggest thing for anyone looking from the outside in to take out of this was about a community rising peacefully to say, government should be about the people, not the parties, and therefore let's do it differently.
There were claims during the campaign that you were fake independents because you received backing from a climate change organisation and your platforms were all very similar. Are you truly independent?
Yeah, 100% truly independent. And I think that those claims were very much an attack line that was run by the two major parties.
But there was a common backer of the 6 independents, Climate 200, a climate change organisation, and you acknowledged you got backing from Climate 200. Did they put this program together?
No. And in fact, I had to introduce myself to Climate 200 after I was identified as the community independent here to understand what it was that the role they thought they might play or what sort of service they might think they would play. I think what's really important around this is that, again, here in Australia, this phrase Climate 200 has been picked up as if it's some sort of nefarious external organisation that's been a bit of a puppeteer across people like myself. The reality is Climate 200 is nothing more than a crowdfunding platform. So I believe there were about 12,500 Australians that donated to Climate 200 because Climate 200 said it would support independents who were prepared to advocate for faster action on climate. I was able to go to them when I needed funding, which enabled me in part to at least put up a fair fight against the major parties here in Australia.
So apart from climate change, you're also pushing for an integrity commission. Why is that necessary?
Here in Australia, we've had a rapid deterioration in the quality of the way politics is done, and you're seeing that in a rapid deterioration in trust around Australian politics. We've had multiple examples of wasteful spending in Australia. We've had rorts where money that was previously identified to go to a specific purposes was then redirected through ministerial discretion with no process of review. We've had parliamentarians involved in blind trusts, being set up behind them to support legal proceedings. And generally speaking, a lot of the behaviour we've seen in Canberra, particularly in the last 6 to 9 years, simply wouldn't be tolerated in a normal work environment.
There's always been misogyny in Australian politics, so why is it that 6 women, independent women, have been voted in at the same time?
I think, it's interesting. People have made a lot about the fact that the majority of the independent candidates that have been successful are female. And I often offer the observation back to people that it's not hard to stand out when you're so rarely seen. So, the reality is Australian politics is not in a situation where we have equal male and female participation. So I do think that this was a moment in time where communities turned back to themselves and went, okay, we need somebody who's prepared to stand and fight for us. And there were a number of people like me who had, until that point in time, seriously never really considered entering politics. But it made sense to do so on the basis that I could fight for something I believed in, and that something I believe in is my community.
You are in the thick of it now. Will the independents form a voting bloc when you're in Parliament? Have you been talking to the other ones?
No, and I don't believe that that is the way we will work. I mean, we are, as we've said before, fundamentally we are all independent community representatives. That's what we've committed to doing. I think what we are all, though, is also infinitely sensible people who bring with us vast experience in terms of business background and, in my case, community building. So it will be natural for me to seek to build consensus right across the parliament. So that will include people on the crossbench, but equally it will include people in government and in opposition.
You, in theory, could be the power brokers because Labor has yet to get to that 76-seat majority. I mean, that's a possibility.
It is a possibility, but I think what's really important on that basis is to recognise that people like myself and the other independents that I've met to date, none of us have been drawn to politics for power. That's not why we're doing this.
If Labor came to you and said, would you be the person that put us into power, what would your bottom line be?
Well, unfortunately, I would be the person who would say no. I won't be the person who puts you into power. I'm happy to support a government once it's formed, and I will absolutely guarantee supply because it's important that Australians have confidence in their government. I will not be doing any secret deals to enable, somebody to step into power. For me, this is about transparency and accountability, and so I intend to enter politics in the same way I intend to hold myself for the whole 3 years.
New Australian Independent, Kylea Tink, thank you for your time.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.